And now, the SleepHawk Worldwide Podcast. Here are your hosts, Brandon Staton and Tyler Hansbrough.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the SleepHawk Worldwide Podcast. This is Sleep Dog with the Big Hawk.
What's up, everybody? It's the Big Hawk. It's absolutely been a monsoon all day, but we've got a beautiful podcast to bring you your sunshine, so tune in. It's going to be a great one.
Super Bowl Monday. Dude, watched the Super Bowl last night. Chiefs win over the 49ers in overtime. Was a snooze-a-thon, turned into a pretty good game in the last 5 minutes of it. We'll talk about that. Not as much Taylor Swift as I expected. Decent amount. Didn't overdo it. A lot of basketball. First time back since the loss against Clemson. Big letdown. Sandwiching the Duke game with 2 losses. Bounce back game at Miami. We'll talk about that one. Felt good about that. We got Syracuse coming up tonight as you're listening on the road, and then Virginia Tech on Saturday at home. So a lot to get into basketball wise as we are into February now. We are now starting to separate the real from the fake and figuring out who's going to be where as we end up in March. Plenty of, we got some great Super Bowl stories from our little shindig at Jean-Claude Tandant's house last night. So we'll save that for the end because, look, everybody comes here for the Tar Heels, I think. So let's start with just sort of a recap. So, last time we got together, we had beaten Duke. Feeling good about it. Lost at Georgia Tech before that game. Water under the bridge. What happens? We turn around and just a dud. Lost for the second time in about 60 years at home against Clemson. And then, kind of was starting to scratch our head again. Like, oh boy, here we go. 2 kind of bad losses here. And then, put one away on the road at Miami. So it's sort of like a up and down sort of a couple weeks or so for the Tar Heels, but, in a good spot right this second. So what are you thinking, Big Hawk? How we looking here?
Sleep, we are looking beautiful. I'm not talking about me and you. I'm talking about in the standings in the ACC. We're at first place, even though we are pretty beautiful.
Tell me something we don't know.
All right. So listen, we're still first in the ACC, and we are behind Virginia, or we are in front of Virginia and Duke. Virginia's 10-3, Duke is 9-3. We are currently 11-2, all in conference play. We're in a pretty good position. I do think that we'll talk about it. We'll cover the Clemson loss, but more recently, the Miami was a big win for us. It was a huge win. All right, so let's backtrack. Let's start with Clemson. And I just want to say that Clemson is a very good team. They have a lot of players. P.J. Hall is one of the best bigs in the country. In Shefflin is a very good player. He does all the small things for Clemson. He makes winning plays. He is a very underrated big. Those two, that combination is very difficult, and Joe Girard is one of the best shooters in the country. Clemson coming into conference play before conference play started, they were actually a dark horse to win the ACC. A lot of people, some analysts and experts, picked them to actually win the ACC. They thought they'd be very good. They kind of got off the rails a little bit, and that's when we played them at their place, and we absolutely dominated them. And if you look at what we did when we went to Clemson, Armando had an amazing game. He absolutely dominated everything inside. He had one of those moments where he reminds us, hey, I'm Armando, and this is what I do. And now let's fast forward to what they did to us last Tuesday. Now, this is a tough game for us and for a lot of players, in particular because we just played our rival Duke over the weekend. We had an emotional win. And a lot of times after a big-time win, a lot of college teams, or in particular a lot of teams, have a letdown the next game. And I just think that's absolutely what we did. And I think that when you listen to the team and you listen to what Coach Davis had said after the game, he was really pushing pushing the guys to really get them ready and not overlook Clemson, because we absolutely dominated them in Clemson and they had an off night. And so when the game started, let me tell you something, PJ Hall came out, had an unbelievable game. Joe Girard, he had a lot of wide open shots. And when PJ gets going and Joe Girard is going to have easy looks, it's going to be a long night. And at no point in the game did we lead. We did not have a lead. We had a chance to take the lead late in the game, and we never really got to that point. And every time that we went on a run, Clemson had an answer. Joe Girard hit a shot in Shefflin late in the game, got a lot of rebounds, did a lot of dirty work, and beat us up on the boards. And PJ Hall had a big night. He played to what everybody thought he could play like. And in particular, when I look at this game, there's one thing that really stands out to me, and that's we didn't have Seth Trimble. And Seth Trimble, once again, I want to say how important of a piece he is to this team. And the reason I say that is because he's somebody who has totally embraced his role, coming in off the bench to play defense, lock down the other team's best offensive player every single night. And he has made a commitment to making winning plays. And what I mean by that is he has really embraced other areas of basketball outside of scoring. And sometimes when I watch, especially young college kids, they put so much pressure on themselves to score that they forget about all the other aspects of the game when they're not scoring. And Seth, to me, he's kind of embraced those other aspects of the game. And what you're starting to see from Seth in particular is you're starting to see him get his confidence not only in other areas of basketball, he's getting his confidence scoring-wise. And if you look at the Duke game, he came in when we went a little stale. He was like a firecracker. He came in, he gave us energy, he provided us a defense, and also he had 10 big points that game. And he wasn't available. It was kind of a last-minute scratch, and everyone was kind of shaking their head, what's wrong with Seth? What's wrong with Seth? But, I really do believe that not having Seth hurt us, and we don't realize how important of a piece he is until we have guys like Joe Girard hitting these open shots, who is one of the best shooters in the country. But Sleep, also, the one thing about Clemson's long and athletic. They have long and athletic guards across the whole roster, and we've talked about it. The Elliot Cadeau, R.J. Davis, and Seth Trimble, those guys aren't even pushing 6 feet. And we get vulnerable when we go against big, physical, strong teams. You saw it against UConn. Villanova in some aspects kind of dominates it that way with the Dixon kid. But I really do believe that Clemson, when they played physical and they played big, it really bothered us. And Harrison Ingram, as good as he's been, I think he's been one of the best transfers in the country. He's not the biggest guy to have inside. And I thought Shefflin at times really presented him with some problems. And especially when Harrison had to go take a break, he caught a cramp late in the game and had to go back in the locker room. And Jalen Washington, he's long and smooth and, athletic, but he doesn't have the body yet to really bang with Shefflin or PJ Hall. And then, you try to go Cormac, and Cormac's just not strong enough for those guys. And so I think that's what Clemson really, where they really beat us up, was kind of late in the game with Shefflin and start the game early with PJ Hall and Joe Girard making those shots. So that's what we got ourselves in such a hole that every time we had a run, Clemson had an answer for our run. And so it was just one of those games where you've got to come out and start the game better. And that's just all what I wrote it up to, Sleep.
Yeah, and I mean, before we get into the bounce back at Miami, it's important to remember, you mentioned it early on, how Clemson was projected to finish highly in the conference, and they were in the top 25 for a little bit, right?
Yep.
And I'm going through their slate of games. They hit kind of a rough patch, but if you really kind of dig in a little bit, you realize that they're not a long way from being, toward the top of the conference. I mean, they beat Alabama earlier this season, ranked Alabama. They beat a ranked South Carolina team. They lost on the road at Memphis by 2. They lost on the road at Miami, kind of bad, but we just realized, Miami's a good team.
Yep.
We beat them at their place. They lost to Virginia Tech, at Virginia Tech, tough place to play, kind of a bad loss there. Let's see, they lost to Georgia Tech, kind of bad loss there. That was a home loss, gave up 93 to Georgia Tech. But then you should have beat Duke. I mean, that was down to the wire at Cameron. They came back, beat Louisville, and then they lost at home by 1 to Virginia, who's won 8 in a row, and who we're going to have to play a week from Saturday. So, like Clemson is not a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. They have good players. Trimble was, I think you hit it right on the head. Like Trimble not being there was a big difference maker, especially late in the game when you get there and need some stops, and he's not there. To transition into the Miami game.
And 1 second, Sleep. I just want to say South Carolina is actually leading the SEC. They're the top team in the SEC right now. It's not Kentucky. It's not Tennessee, which, by the way, we demolished Tennessee. And a lot of people have said that the SEC is going to be a tough conference. They're not. The ACC never gets the credit it deserves. Clemson beat South Carolina, which South Carolina has been one of the biggest surprises in college basketball. Their head coach is up for Coach of the Year, and they're doing big things. Clemson beat them. They also dominated Alabama at Alabama, which is tough to do. But I just want to say that before we move on.
Every team in the ACC, save the bottom 3, have winning records. So it's not like it's just a disaster down there. And look, I've said this 1,000 times. Like whoever comes out of the whoever the national championship is this year is going to have 5 or 6 losses. I think we have 5, and we're probably. I guess the poll probably came out at some point today. I haven't even read it yet, but we're probably 5 or 6, maybe 7 right now after losing to Clemson. So that's how I feel about it. Segue into the Miami game, right? You mentioned Trimble. We missed him there too, and the difference was we were able to sort of hang on. We built out a pretty solid lead very early on, and then, seemed to struggle a bit. And, again, we talked a lot about this, just winning some of these games that aren't easy and down on the road. It seemed like watching on TV, pretty hostile environment. So it was good win for the Tar Heels.
Yeah, and Sleep, you've kind of mentioned it. We didn't have such Trimble, but we went down to Miami, and it wasn't a thing of beauty. I'll be honest. The biggest takeaways I take away from the Miami game is one, Elliot Cadeau. He had 2 threes. He's been struggling from the 3-point line all year, and for him to step up, make 2 threes, I thought that was big. Hopefully, that gives him his confidence to get his shooting going and a little more confidence in his shot. But Cadeau, he had 19 points and 8 assists. That was big for him, especially a freshman on the road in a tough environment. That was big. RJ had 25 points. Mondo did the same with 10 points and 15 rebounds. So we had key guys that play like key guys, but there was it wasn't the smoothest thing. I will say that, Sleep, because I just want to say that the whole free throw situation late in the game where Miami, the ball was out on Harrison Ingram. I'll just say that. So if anybody wasn't watching, we were up 3. We fouled. They had a 1-on-1, made the first one, and they threw the second shot, kind of missiled it off the rim. It bounced around a little bit funky and went off Harrison. Well, the refs went to look at the review, and during the review, they called a lane violation on Miami, which I don't even know. Like, sometimes I'm like, that shouldn't even be.
From the 3-point line, too.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm like, I'm laughing because most of the time they go to the monitor to look at specifically, hey, was it out off Harrison or a Miami player? But in this instance, they backed it all the way up and they said, no, it was a lane violation. So we got the ball. And I will just say, we've been on the other side of bad calls all year. Let's not even act like we don't get the benefit of the whistle. We ain't Duke. Because Clemson got hosed in Cameron. I would just say that. Clemson, that call that Duke got on Clemson was absolutely that's comical. That was a bad
it's like the same. It was almost the exact same situation that we did not get against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I mean,
and look, here's the one thing I'll say about that call late in the Miami game. I think that the only reason they called it, I think it was the wrong call. I think it was a bad call.
Yeah,
I think the only reason they called it is because not only. I don't think otherwise they would have, but that kid that came in from the 3-point line was the one that contested for the ball. And so in that situation, like him getting that half a step essentially creates that sort of collision with Ingram where Ingram knocks the ball out of bounds. And I think right? If I were trying to justify that call, I would say he was involved in the play probably because he had that step to get in. And, I mean, so maybe that's why it gets called. Like, imagine, they don't call lane violations. Well, imagine a guy, grabs the rebound or something like that. So I kind of get it, but I'd be pissed if I was Miami, and I'm not going to act like if that call had been us on the other foot, like, I would have been okay with it. So,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. The biggest thing, though, in those two games is, Carolina shooting less than 40% from the field combined in those two games.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned it with Cadeau hitting some shots. RJ has, RJ's just been scorching all year. I mean, what did he have against
he struck
25 or something. Anyway,
25
Miami?
Against Miami. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
So RJ, Sleep, you're right. RJ is one of those. He's playing as good as anybody in the country. First of all, except for Zach Edey. Zach Edey's playing better than anybody. Zach Edey will be the National Player of the Year, but RJ Davis needs to be considered for first team All-American because I think he's had an unbelievable year. But I will say the one thing that I've noticed over the past few games, and it's kind of something, a resounding theme with UNC is right now is if we want to make a deep tournament run and we want to get where we want to go, like want to meet all these expectations inside the locker room that they've created, and they're playing unbelievable. And you've got to give them a lot of credit. You got to give Coach Davis a lot of credit because he's done an unbelievable job, especially coming off of what they went through last year. But the one thing I will say that they need to clean up from my perspective is late game situations. Okay. And so if you look at early on, you look at the Kentucky execution late in the game, we had a turnover, we lost that game. Okay. And more recently, if you look at Clemson, we didn't really execute. We had a chance. We clawed back in the game late in the game. We didn't really make plays or shots to really give us the chance we needed to win. Clemson did. And actually, if you look at the Duke game, we had a substantial lead late in the game. Duke made a little bit of a run. Now that was there was some officiating that Duke benefited off of that, and that's a different subject. And we need to talk about that. We don't ever need to let the Dukies off the hook because they get the benefit of the whistle more than any team in the country, and it's starting to become comical. And you cannot keep doing that. Somebody needs to mention that and bring that to everybody's attention. But I will say also is Miami, I thought we kind of struggled late in the game to really make closing out plays. And I get it. Ellie Cadeau's young. We have a lot of new faces, but it's late in the year. Okay. It's February. Okay. We need to start cleaning that up late in the game to really start pulling these things out. And I think that's the next step for this team if I'm being critical. And you look at the Georgia Tech game too. Late in the game, we had a chance to really win that game late, but we didn't make the plays late in the game. You know what I'm saying? Like we had one possession. And you look at, and that's the thing is RJ's been so good, it's kind of hard not to give him the ball late in the game. But sometimes it's got to come from Wayne Ellington. He hit big shots. He gave us, Ty Lawson. And when I played with them, those are guys, it wasn't just like they were trying to force the ball to me to make a play late in the game. It was, somebody's like, it takes a whole team to really step up and make plays. And that's not just offensively, that's defensively as well. Yep. So if I'm being critical, Sleep, that's the one thing I think needs to be taken care of, late game execution offensively and defensively. Everybody's got to be tuned into their assignments and what this person does. And also we've got to execute. You can't have turnovers and you can't have lapses on help side defense, or you can't leave guys open. Everything has to be difficult, and you've got to close things out with the rebound defensively. And that's the only thing that I look at that Carolina really needs to improve, but they've done great all year, and you've got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, because everybody's a veteran now, right?
Yeah.
Like on this team, you got big time freshmen on this team. You got these transfers. You got Mondo. You got RJ. You got everybody here at this point has enough experience that they need they need to execute, right? And that's the part here, is that we've talked about this a lot with the parity in college basketball. It's going to come down to your more mature team. Look, we're an older team. We're an experienced team. So, your teams that are going to win in March are the ones that, and more importantly, teams going to win in April are the ones that are doing things right. They're not beating themselves, because look, you're going to go out there some nights and we've had a couple of these games where nobody's really shooting the ball well. You're going to have to get by on making the other team shoot poorly too then, right? Or you brought up a good point there where I first noticed it, I think, in the Duke game, where Duke's strategy was, hey, we're going to let anybody but RJ Davis beat us. And every time RJ was getting the ball, I don't remember what he finished with. I think he finished with a decent stat line, but in the first half, I think he had 4 points, if I remember.
Yep.
Right. And it was very clear, like, dude, we are not letting him get the ball. So some of those days you're going to have to get shots at the bucket when he's drawing those double teams. And yeah, I do think sometimes, and we saw it a ton last year, and this is a problem that does not exist this year. So I'm not making that comparison, but we saw it a lot with Caleb Love, right? The sort of thing, you run late in the shot clock, you got the ball, and they're pressuring you up the floor. You kind of trying to get into a couple things aren't there. Next thing you know, you got the ball 30 feet from the basket with 7 seconds left on the shot clock, trying to execute your offense. People panic, right? So that is not an issue now. It kind of can creep into any game, right? That's the point of playing against good defense, right? So, yeah. And so what I'm saying is in some ways, it's sort of optimistic that these are things that you can change. If guys aren't making shots all season, if guys just don't look like they're very good, or there is no chemistry, that's one thing. But this team has all of that. And, I think what we're seeing right now is a little bit of an inconsistent play, but nothing that alarms me. I just feel like, hey, you're going to hit a bump in the road. And I always go back to the thing you always say, which is, in 2009, you guys lost those first 2 games in the ACC. Yep. So I get that this isn't the first 2 games of the ACC, but you lose a game against Georgia Tech that you feel like you should have won. It's close. You lose a game on the road against, Clemson that you feel like you should have won. But it's against a good team. Pretty much every loss we've had this year against pretty good teams, with save maybe the Georgia Tech game. So I just don't think there's a huge cause for alarm. You got a couple games coming up at Syracuse and against Virginia Tech. Again, sort of righting the ship. It'd be nice to get one of these and just really blow the doors off somebody, because then you got Virginia game 3 next Saturday, not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. And that's going to be, that's a big tilt. I think we're at Virginia too, aren't we? No,
Virginia Tech, we're at home on Saturday.
Sorry, I meant after that on the 24th, a week from Virginia Tech, we're at Virginia, and Virginia's hot right now. They won 8 straight. So
that'll be a good game. You better drink some coffee, not because the game's late, because you're playing Virginia. And Tony Bennett, he's a great coach. He does his thing and he runs his style about as good as anybody, but I will never watch a full Virginia game. I don't care if they're playing UNC. And I know I've got to watch it. I won't watch the whole game just because I hate that slow style so much. I will not watch a full game of it.
Buddy, you can doze off.
No, sir.
You can doze off, hit REM sleep, and wake up and there's still 10 seconds on the shot clock watching Virginia play. Boy, it is like watching paint dry and grass grow.
I don't know why anybody would. Man, Tony Bennett's a great coach. He's had a lot of pros.
Dry via evaporation. Slow. It is.
You ain't putting up stats at Virginia. Let me tell you that. You ain't averaging 12 points in Virginia. That's like 30.
It is rough, man. Syracuse is the same way, but I don't guess they're as bad as they used to be. So
no.
Oh man. Anyway, so all right, let's touch on that real quick, and then we'll move on to the Super Bowl. We got at Syracuse, and then coming up on Virginia Tech, and that's both those games are going to happen before we record again. So what are we looking to do? Win at Syracuse and win at home against Virginia Tech. What needs to happen?
Well, first of all, we're better than both teams. Pure. Okay, we have more talent. First of all, we've got to be a good version of ourselves. We don't have to be anybody else. We have to go there and do what we do. But also we need to be aware, okay, you need to know how to move the ball against Syracuse. They still run a little bit of zone. And so you've got to know where to put the ball, how to move, and also pace. Okay, I think the pace is going to be super important against Syracuse because if you push the ball and you play an up-tempo pace, it never allows Syracuse to establish their zone defense. And so then you can beat their zone and you can go inside to Armando with ease. But that's the key. I think it's going to come down to us playing defense, pushing the ball, pace of play, and rebounding. Those are going to be my 3 keys to both of these games. I will never go over 3 keys because you're starting to get a little bit too much into, you got to be perfect.
Jangle. Got too many keys, it starts to jangle on you.
Yeah, you can get to remember the first one if you got more than 3. I'll just say that from experience. Okay, so you've got to hone in on what's important. 3 keys. Okay, rebounding, you got to play defense. Okay, and you got to push the ball. Okay, we win the game if we do that, barring they don't get LeBron in between the time we play them.
All right. Speaking of LeBron, I think Patrick Mahomes won 3 Super Bowls now. I think LeBron's won 4 titles. So I was going to say, but Mahomes is getting up there in LeBron territory in NFL terms. We were all together watching the Super Bowl last night. Me, Big Hulk, Big Dan, Marcus, Dan, Cam.
Rosie.
Yeah, Rosie. Rose. Dude, our buddy Dan's got what is that thing called? A Bernedoodle. And for about the first hour we were there, that dog was chill, cool as a cucumber. And all of a sudden, that thing must have got some cookie crumbs fell on the floor. It just got a jolt. I mean, that thing was like Back to the Future, just darting around, gnawing on my arms and stuff, man. Little razor teeth. Great dog.
Amazing. Beautiful.
Thing's probably still sleeping after all. That sucker just went ham bone about second quarter last night.
Oh man, Dan fell victim of we got to get a dog.
Got to get a dog, man. That's how they get you.
Oh,
mine's somewhere around here, and she does the same thing. But it's the best part is dog's good until it rains outside. Everything's good. Everything's great about having a dog till it rains outside. I've been wiping mud off my dog's paws, and dude, I bought one of these damn things. It's called a mud buster. All right, it's like a cup with a silicone insert, like little things on it. You're supposed to just stick the dog's paw in it, right?
Oh hell no!
And get the mud off of it. Well, first of all, dog don't want their paw in there. Okay. Second of all, it's like you got to get a tilt factor. A tilt and an injection factor. So if you tilt too much, water falls out. You don't tilt enough, and the dog, you feel like that thing's useless. Okay. And then all of a sudden, what you got is a dog that's running all over the house with soaking wet mud paws. So that doesn't work. So you take a little, we just went to and bought shop rags. Okay. So this dog comes in and we give it beg this thing with treats to sit down and go chill. I said chill, and it's not chilling. Right. And I'm trying to wipe mud off its paws. And I'm telling you, dude, I wipe the hell out of this dog's paws. And then first thing it does, and then you give it a treat. So it'll next time it comes in, it'll still sit there and let you wipe its paws. Takes that treat, just jumps right on the bed and gets mud everywhere.
Oh, gotcha.
All the time. Every day it rains. There's just no avoiding it. So good luck, Dan. Dan's dog's about 4 months old. Hell, mine's 8 months old. And ain't no signs of slowing down. I got a kid coming after this. So just add more mud into the mix.
Buckle up. I haven't seen your new dog, actually. I got to meet him. What's your dog's name?
My dog's name's Sunny, man. She's great. Yeah, little chocolate lab.
I need to meet her.
And she gets all the benefit. So the early listeners, man, Finley was an all-timer, dude. I was going to do a whole ode to Finley after she died, but I wouldn't have kept it together, buddy.
Finley was a great dog.
Oh, what a dog that was. Yeah. She's sitting over my shoulder somewhere. I got her. Dude. YouTube subscribers just get a treat here. Old Finley, right there. And then when she died, they do this weird thing. They put her paw in there, man. Still got her hair in there, which is very apropos. I'm still finding that dog's hair all over the house. Yeah. Love it. But yeah, and so now she was a Chesapeake Bay Retriever. Now we got a chocolate lab. And so not to mention they look a lot alike, and then we call her the wrong thing all the time. But what Sunny doesn't realize is Sunny, we gave her the name for a couple of reasons. One, because we couldn't agree on anything, but she looked like she had sun in. When she was real young, she had a light band over the top of her head, like she put sun in her hair and tried to go blonde, and it didn't work. But also Sunday, like ice cream Sunday I went with. But she just benefits from, like, having a first dog is one thing. It's like, I guess, having a first kid. But then you have that second one. And especially if you do like we did. I mean, we were still a mess after we got rid of, after Sonny got rid of, after Finley died. So Sonny comes along and we just realize all the inconsequential stuff that used to bother me, like getting on the couch and shedding and all that. I'm like, dude, who cares? Like, sure, you can sleep in a bed with it. That dog sleeps on a pillow between us and is 85 pounds. I don't know where we were going to Super Bowl. Well, the Puppy Bowl. Puppy Bowl was last night. So anyway, yeah, dude, dog's the best. Good luck, Dan. They're the best until you get a rug. So yeah, Super Bowl was sort of a snooze-a-thon. We were all at Dan's house. We were all just trying to play all these games. We kept having to manufacture rules about passing this cup around to make it interesting. Not sure how the accounting works on, the dollar in the cup and moving around. I think we changed the rules such that I was holding the cup once. I think I wound up with $3 short of the people that were playing. Nonetheless, it turned into a good game at the end. I felt like it was like, dude, almost the entire game was forgettable. And then all of a sudden, like, buckle up, it was good. 25-22 Chiefs overtime. The only thing I really care to talk about the game, because there was really no like bewildering performance. I guess at the end, Mahomes did what he does. I thought Brock Purdy was great, and I thought Christian McCaffrey was really good. But the only thing I thought was crazy is that apparently the 49ers didn't know the overtime rules. And I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't know the overtime rules either. But I don't play in the NFL for San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
I still don't think I know the rules, even though they've been explained and I've watched them. But apparently, like, it's just like, because they come in the coin toss and they're like, fourth quarter time rules apply, which would lead one to believe that fourth quarter, right? Like, this is the fourth quarter. So at the end of overtime, it's like, okay, I understand maybe there's a second overtime, but apparently it's just like the first quarter. So like if it's still tied at the end of overtime, you go into the second overtime, like you just change sides of the field. And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But Mike Shanahan basically, or Kyle Shanahan basically said they took the ball first because they wanted to score, so that if Kansas City scored, they'd be the first team in the sudden death part, right, to have the ball.
Well,
I don't know what the hell to do.
Yeah, so Sleep, I'll debate this with you. I watched it. Shanahan, it sounds like he had already predetermined this situation. First of all, he said that before the game, the analytics, they had already settled that if it does go into overtime before the game, that they were going to receive the ball first. Now, okay, so they got the ball first in overtime, right, Sleep, if I recall? Let me tell you why I'm going against what a lot of people say. First of all, I think it's dumb that a lot of the 49ers players are actually talking about publicly they didn't know the rules. Listen, the rules, this changed a couple of years ago, actually. So this isn't like, it's not like they make themselves look good by coming to the press and say, I didn't even know the overtime rules. Well, you should know the overtime rules. And whether that's a coaching staff or your own personal, you should just be up to date on your job situation. And as far as professional sports, if they change the rules in anything, especially Super Bowl, you should probably know yourself. Why was it a good decision for them to receive the ball first? First of all, Travis Kelce was starting to heat up. Okay. Second of all, 49ers defense was on the field playing defense that whole time, and Mahomes was just lighting them up. Travis Kelce was getting open. They needed a rest. I wasn't about to, if I was a coach, I'm not putting my defense back out there after what they let Mahomes and Kelce just do across the field. I'm going to give them a break. And also they have a young quarterback in Brock Purdy. And I will say, I don't like the situation where a young quarterback, as good as Brock is, being under more pressure than he already is in being in the Super Bowl. So if Kansas City would have gone down and scored, Brock Purdy comes back and he's having pressure to have to make plays to score. I think Purdy's very good when he doesn't make mistakes and there's not a lot of pressure. So that is why I'm in the minority when it comes to fighting people to whether they should receive the ball or whether they should have let Kansas City receive the ball first. Now, I get that you want to know what you need to do to win the game, and I get that argument, but I don't mind the decision that Shanahan made in this particular instance. And let me tell you something. Make the damn field goal. Don't get the field goal blocked and it's not in overtime. Not a lot of people are talking about that. They got a field goal, an extra point blocked. No one's talking about that. And also, Christian McCaffrey, he had under, I think, 3 or 4 yards per rushing, which is – pretty bad for him. He's usually a little bit better than that. McCaffrey didn't have his best game. Debo didn't even have his best game. Debo was in and out. And also they had some guy tear his Achilles just even running into the game. So, let's not like just totally make this on Shanahan.
Special teams was a bit of a disaster, dude. So, Big Hawk, I'll be honest with you. Of all the Super Bowl analysis maybe I've ever heard, what you just said made more sense than maybe any Super Bowl breakdown I've ever heard in the history of American football. I mean, it makes total sense. It really, really does. Like I was sitting here thinking, I was like, damn, this is very logical. Yeah, I mean, it makes, I don't care. I don't know what the right decision is, whether you take it or don't take it, but you're right. You know, the defense is gas. Why are you going to put them back out on the field? Mm-hmm. You put your quarterback who's performed well under pressure and all kinds of other things, but you put him in the least pressure situation by saying, hey, dude, just go out and try to score. And if you don't, we still have a chance to stop them. Right. Mm-hmm. And then to your point, if you don't, if you got a gas defense and they give up a touchdown, oh my God, like I don't care if you're Tom Brady. I mean, that's a situation that about only Tom Brady's equipped to handle. Mm-hmm. So, dude, that makes a ton of sense. And yeah, nobody's talking about extra point. Yep. Like, dude, claimed one. He also just drilled a couple from like 50 some yards. So, look, at the end of the day, I thought it was a good Super Bowl. I like Mahomes. I know everybody's kind of, you got half the world that's like, in love with the Chiefs and because Taylor Swift's involved, and the other equal parts, just people just despise them because Taylor Swift's. Who cares? Like I don't. Look, it's fun, man. If you're that bent out of shape, you think that Taylor Swift is an American conspiracy to swing the election. Like, okay, pal. Like, good luck with it. I don't know what to tell you. Move to Bermuda or something. So I just thought it was compelling. What wasn't good? I don't recall a single good commercial. Like from now, granted, probably weren't paying like super close attention, but we were paying attention. And I also don't feel like anybody's talking about the commercials except for the Jesus one. 2 of those that were $14 million. Aside from those, I haven't really heard anybody talking about any of the commercials, which is very uncommon. Did
you miss the Sky Rizzy commercial?
I guess I did because I've been watching Sky Rizzy. There was one other one early on too, and I'm like, dude, they just dropped a bucket. Obviously, they are charged. Look, think what you want about vaccines, okay? But the pharma is just cleaning house if they're dropping $7 million on a Super Bowl ad, so I can watch 2 people dance around in circles and Skechers. Like, I mean, oh wow, is all I got to say. That you couldn't come up with something. I mean, it's like they just said, hey, look, we got a playbook and we're gonna roll with it. We're gonna roll out them jingle jangle songs to make something rhyme with some name we just made up out of the sky, and we're gonna put 3 people of varying genders and ethnicities together, and they're gonna hold hands and sing Kumbaya because they take this injectable. And it just makes makes whatever weird thing go away, and we're going to slide in the side effects. Like, you can take this and make your life better unless it kills you or gives you bloody stool or nausea or blurry vision. If you see those things, seek a doctor's help. don't come to us. Anyway, no good commercials in my opinion.
What about the halftime performance?
That's next, dude. Oh my God. All right. So here's the deal. We were sitting there, all of us, and we were going through all the halftime things, like prior halftime shows. And I was just like, dude, you got Beyonce, you got Lady Gaga, you got the one a couple years ago with Dr. Dre and Eminem, and you got all these like star-studded deals. And I was like, Usher? Really? Like Usher? It just seems like you're mailing it in. Dude, that might have been the best halftime show I've ever seen.
I'm with you, Sleep.
I don't think it's close.
I'm a hater. I love to hate. It was a great performance.
It was awesome.
I want to rag it. I can't. It was good. It was good.
Dude came on roller skates.
Yeah, it was good.
I mean, could you imagine? All right, here's a scenario for you, dude. We're backup dancers for Usher. All right. And we're already, just like, dude, we're going to have to be active out there. We're going to have to be. And then he rolls up to the damn production meeting. He's like, guys, I'm going to throw a wrench in this. We're going to do this on roller skates. I'd be like, dude, you got to be kidding me. It was awesome, dude. I can't believe no one fell down. I can't believe it. I mean, you're on something that some carnies, roadies built, a stage that's like literally they bring all this together and put it up in a matter of minutes. And then you want me to put on roller skates, and I'm in my 30s. We'll probably, I mean, dude, Usher's old. Usher's got to be at least older
45-ish, I think.
Dude, guys out there never mind the fact that he took his clothes off out there and he's rolling around on roller skates. I mean, dude, and all the music was just like, dude, it was sick. I'm not going to lie. We did a little thing where we were, there's some arguments about, we had a little thing with what was the first song going to be. And the first song was about 7 songs. And then everybody was arguing about who won. But yeah, dude, that was one of the best I've seen in a while.
It was good.
Don't really have anything else on the Super Bowl other than bet Washington ain't going to make it next year. I think it's interesting too. Like, I mean, unlike probably basketball, we talk a lot about this. I just feel like Kansas City and especially the 49ers will be right back there next year. I mean, the Niners are loaded. I feel like they can. I mean, look, I think you learned a lot about Kansas City's defense. I think the Niners did a lot to harm themselves, but I mean, I would imagine those guys. I would imagine San Francisco's Super Bowl favorite, already going into next year.
They're getting a little bit older. As far as
see that Bill
McCaffrey and
Simmons,
Trent Williams, yeah.
Bill Simmons had a bunch of people. I was watching the McAfee show, and apparently a bunch of guys put out parlays and had a bunch of their people riding with them. And Bill Simmons put one out and had like 8,000 people on the same thing, and it just got nuked. Oh, man. And McAfee just went in on him. He was like, yeah, a lot of people lost a lot of money listening to Bill Simmons. One thing I wanted to get to that we didn't talk about, Big Hawk, before this was this waste management tournament before we jump off here. So this is interesting because I didn't watch it, but some of the golfers were complaining that stuff got so out of hand. And look, the waste management, for anybody that doesn't, I think everybody on this pod knows what it is. It's always been sort of like the bro-a-thon. Somebody said, Ricky Fowler said it's a Coachella for dudes in their 30s. And I think there's truer words never been spoken. But the videos and stuff coming out of this one in particular, apparently, like, dude, it's just gone off the rails. Like, these people are just smoked out there on the course, obliterated. There was one video of a guy that literally ran out on the green, and he fell on his face 3 times. And all I could think about was, imagine making that decision and waking up the next day. You'd literally die of a panic. It'd be the first recorded case in modern history of someone actually dying from a panic attack, because I'd be so embarrassed of that happening. I don't know. So my point is like this was the allure of it. I think they had to stop serving alcohol. I'm a little too old for it. Would have probably enjoyed it at a certain time in my life. Might even enjoy just doing it to say I've been there. Definitely ain't gonna be me running around in my boxer briefs, plowing into the sand trap. But I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts. Is that gonna change sort of how they do that going forward? And will it take away from it?
It needs to change. And golf is a very classy, uppity sport. Let's not forget that. There's a lot of etiquette, and it seems to be forgotten that golf and a lot of sports are a game of class. In particular, I think golf, I think tennis, I think those two sports in particular fall in a, like, you have to have etiquette and class, and I think the fans should exhibit that as well. I do think that you can't let adults in particular go to these things and get obliviated and just like become a total liability and just falling down. You saw people when I was looking at it on social media. Of course, I laughed, but in reality, if you're a 35-year-old dude or mid 30s, I want to just say this: no age is acceptable for being as drunk as some of these people were on Instagram. And if you're like, if you have friends that are with you and don't pull you out of that situation, you need to like take a long, hard look in the mirror at yourself. And I had to do that over the weekend for something else, Sleep. And that's a different story. But it wasn't because of drugs or anything like that. But so, Sleep, I want to say this. Guys,
you let us talk long enough, we'll talk ourselves into a cul-de-sac, people.
And I'm like, guys, all right, listen. Guys, stop getting this drunk. And I do think the golfers have the right to complain. And the reason they should be able to complain is when people drink that much amount, they do that, they become a distraction. And also they get obnoxious and they start to yell and scream and become loud. And I think that is disruptive to the game of golf and especially the golfers. There's too much on the line for them, for some of these idiots that are getting hammered, to really distract and take away from the game. That's my only reason. I do think it's funny, but also at some point, these are humans, and we laugh about it. But in reality, there's a problem if somebody's that drunk in public.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is like, it's a fun event because it sort of bucks the trend, right? That what is it, 16, where everybody just goes crazy. Famous clip, Tiger Woods hitting a hole in one. Like, that part's really, really fun. But there's a certain line that you just can't cross at a certain point as a populace too, right? So you got all these obviously lone rogue people just getting obliterated. Well, the problem is it seems to be more and more and more of those. And what's going to wind up happening is they're going to ruin an otherwise awesome event. And like, everybody gets to treat it like it's WWE Monday Night Raw out there. And that's part of the fun of it. But like, you can't treat it like it's the damn running of the bulls, because that's going to cross the line and they're going to scale it all back. And and what's going to wind up happening isn't like they're going to just stop altogether, but they're going to over restrict everything. Like, they're going to make it so hard to get one beer that nobody's going to go anymore. And the whole allure of the whole thing's going to go away. And it'll be someday we'll be talking about 30 years ago when it used to be fun. So yeah, it's funny to an extent. There's been some funny clips, but it does kind of get tired after a while. And maybe this is us getting old, but it's like, dude, all right, man, like, take it from me, buddy. That ain't what you want to be known for. Anyway, guys, we are, I guess we're pretty much out of things to talk about. So get your Jimmy's seafood. A couple of them dudes, that's what they needed. They needed to wake up in the morning, get a couple, chocolate chip cookies of the sea in them, couple hearty servings of crab cake stuff, soak up all that alcohol. Probably would have done them some good. But and they could have gotten it out there. If they were thinking ahead, they could have got Jimmy to ship it out there. But anyway, get some Jimmy's Famous Seafood. Get your box. Go see them, man. Go to Baltimore. Go to their tournament. We're going to go to their tournament here in a couple months. That you want to talk about. I mean, that's like the Waste Management Open done right, if you ask me, Big Hulk. I mean, we got 1 year of experience on our belt, which we will soon have 2 coming up later this year. Jonathan Kuminga plays at 9 o'clock tonight, buddy. By the time you guys hear this, he'll probably have had a triple-double. Nobody's watching. Big Hawk's not watching. Marcus talked to Marcus last night. He's not watching. But guess who's watching? I am, and everybody's going to be watching here pretty soon. Dude's taking off. You got anything else, Big Hawk?
Stay safe.
Stay safe out there, everybody.